our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. Turkey has thrown its support behind South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. South Africa has accused Israel of committing genocide during its ongoing war in Gaza. It says Israel allegedly violated the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Turkish Foreign Ministry spokesperson Oncu Keçeli says Turkey endorses South Africa's case condemning Israel's actions. Keçeli emphasized the need for accountability under international law. He also said he hopes for a swift resolution to the case. South Africa filed the case last month. It is also seeking an order to halt Israel's military operations in Gaza. Supporters of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum projected images and messages urging the world to stop the genocide in Gaza in a display of solidarity. The projection was made on the museum's exterior walls. It featured harrowing photographs of atrocities in Gaza accompanied by slogans like "Ceasefire now" and "Silence equals death." Organizer Michael Beer is director of Nonviolence International and a descendant of Holocaust victims. He stressed the museum's responsibility to speak out against genocide, particularly in Gaza. Holocaust survivor and longtime museum supporter Marianne Ross called on the institution to not remain silent amid Israel's war on Palestinians. Jonathan Kutab is director of Friends of Sabeel North America. He drew parallels between the suffering of Palestinians and the Holocaust and urged the museum to uphold its mission of opposing genocide worldwide. Nonviolence International, Jewish Voice for Peace, DC Metro, and Friends of Sabeel North America endorsed the action. The groups are calling for an inclusive response to prevent and oppose genocide against all people. In a gesture of solidarity with the people of Gaza, the Eastern Orthodox Church, which observes Christmas on January 7th, has canceled all traditional Christmas festivities this year. That means no public celebrations, twinkling Christmas lights, or decorated trees as embattled Gaza remains under a state of war. Orthodox Christians who reside mainly in Egypt, Armenia, Russia, and Greece celebrate Christmas according to the Julian calendar. Pope Tawadros II of Alexandria, Egypt, expressed his sorrow over the situation in Gaza, hoping for an end to the crisis, healing of wounds, and Gaza's reconstruction. He asked why countries that claim to be progressive and civilized are unable to condemn what is happening to Gaza. Grand Imam of Al-Azhar Ahmad Al-Tayyib and Pope Tawadros II have agreed to establish a joint committee that acts against the Israeli aggression on Gaza. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell is calling for decisive international intervention to end Israel's war against Palestine. Borrell says both parties' inability to reach an agreement necessitates external imposition of a solution. He warned that if the crisis persists, it could ignite a wider conflagration across the Middle East. Borrell also mentioned plans to visit the area to explore potential ways to resolve the escalating conflict. Demonstrators gathered in front of Secretary of State Antony Blinken's house in Virginia, protesting against U.S. policy on Gaza. The pro-Palestine activists chanted "Shame on you" as they spilled fake blood on the streets and over Blinkens' car as he left his house in McLean for work. Protesters also chanted "Stop the deaths in Gaza" and "War criminal." The U.S., one of the few countries opposing a ceasefire in Gaza, has been facing increased international pressure. Millions of people have been taking to the streets in capitals worldwide, calling for a cessation of hostilities. The Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor is calling on the international community to pressure Israel to unveil the whereabouts of detainees from Gaza. The call comes amid reports of executions and abuse. The Geneva-based organization asserts Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are enduring a genocide at the hands of Israel. The group insists an investigation initiated by Israeli military police into the alleged killing of a Palestinian detainee is not an isolated incident. The Euromed Human Rights Monitor received multiple accounts of the Israeli army's alleged involvement in the death of numerous Palestinian detainees. Some prisoners reportedly were being tortured to death in army detention camps, according to the reports. The group claims hundreds of Palestinians have gone missing in Gaza, many suspected to have been taken into custody during Israeli raids. This has led to arbitrary and extrajudicial executions, the group claims. The Rights Monitor urges the International Committee of the Red Cross to lead an international campaign to ensure access to all Palestinian detainees. Preliminary estimates suggest more than 3,000 Palestinians, including women and young girls, are presently detained by Israeli forces. Israel committed 6 massacres in safe zones in 3 days. Details come after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Israeli army committed 6 massacres within 3 days. This was by forcibly pushing people to areas that were claimed to be safe in Rafah city in southern Gaza. Israeli strikes in these so-called safe areas have killed 31 people in 3 days. The Palestine government's media office urged the international community to put an end to the comprehensive genocidal war by the Israeli occupation army in the Palestinian enclave. The Israeli army airdrops leaflets urging people to evacuate to so-called safe areas. Tarek Habash, a political appointee at the United States Education Department, has resigned due to his dissatisfaction with the Biden administration's handling of Israel's war on Gaza. Habash is the sole Palestinian American appointee at the agency. He has expressed concerns about the administration's inaction in addressing the suffering of innocent Palestinian lives in Gaza. Habash accused the administration of enabling indiscriminate violence against Palestinians and criticized its stance on the UN resolutions for a ceasefire. He also revealed experiencing dehumanization and identity erasure. Habash's resignation reflects his frustration with the United States government's support for Israel and its lack of action in addressing the long-standing issues in the region. This marks another high-profile departure after a former State Department official, Josh Paul, resigned over U.S. arms support to Israel in the same context. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has signed legislation ensuring the availability of halal and kosher food items in state prison commissaries and vending machines. It will take effect in September. Prison mess halls already provide halal and kosher options for meals, but commissaries and vending machines have been lacking in such offerings. The law also ensures the products are sold at the same price as non-religious items. A leader of the pro-Iran Hashd al-Shaabi military force was killed in a U.S. strike in the Iraqi capital Baghdad on Thursday. The Iraqi Nujaba movement, a faction of the Hashd al-Shaabi force, said in a statement that Abu Taqwa al-Saidi was killed in the U.S. attack. It, however, did not provide any further details. The Baghdad Ring Operations Command, which operates under the Hashd al-Shaabi, also confirmed al-Saidi's death in the U.S. attack. The Iraqi army early Thursday condemned a U.S.-led coalition drone strike on an Iraqi security force in Baghdad as a dangerous escalation. In a statement, military spokesperson Yahya Rasool said the U.S.-led international coalition bears responsibility for an unjustified attack on the security force. Later, the Pentagon confirmed the strike, saying it also left an associate of al-Saidi dead. Spokesman Pat Ryder said the individual was actively involved in planning and carrying out attacks against American personnel. A funeral prayer was held for local commander of pro-Iran faction, who was killed in a U.S. strike in Baghdad, Iraq. The UN has revealed that nearly 25 million people in Sudan are in desperate need of humanitarian aid this year. UN Relief Chief Martin Griffiths has expressed deep concern about the escalating suffering caused by the ongoing war in Sudan. The conflict, spanning nearly 9 months, has plunged the nation into an increasingly devastating crisis. Griffiths emphasized that intensifying hostilities are obstructing humanitarian efforts and endangering regional stability. He called upon the international community, particularly those with influence over the warring parties, to take swift and decisive action to halt the fighting and ensure the safety of humanitarian operations. This war has resulted in the world's largest displacement crisis, displacing over 7 million people, with 1.4 million fleeing to neighboring countries. Over 12,000 people have been killed, and more than 33,000 individuals have been injured. Despite multiple ceasefire attempts, the violence shows no signs of abating. Urgent measures to protect civilians, facilitate humanitarian access, and halt the conflict are vital for Sudan's people in 2024. Pakistani President Arif Alvi is urging the United Nations to uphold its promise by conducting a long-delayed plebiscite into disputed Jammu and Kashmir. This appeal coincides with the January 5th, the day in 1949. That is when the United Nations pledged the future of Jammu and Kashmir would be determined through a fair plebiscite. The promise has remained unfulfilled. Alvi emphasized that self-determination is a fundamental principle of international law and has been endorsed in various UN treaties. He accused India of violating UN resolutions and international humanitarian laws through its continued occupation of a majority of part of Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, advocacy group Legal Forum for Kashmir reported 248 casualties in 2023, including Indian soldiers, civilians, and militants in the region. The death and injury toll in Gaza continues to rise at an alarming rate. According to the Palestine Health Ministry, 22,313 Palestinians have been killed over the past 90 days in Gaza. This includes over 9,600 children, 6,750 women, and 1,049 elderly individuals, comprising 75% of casualties. More than 7,000 Palestinians, including over 5,000 children, are still trapped under the rubble of their destroyed homes. The number of injured people has exceeded 57,000, with the majority being children and women. There have been over 1,800 massacres targeting Palestinian families, with 471 people killed in the bombing of the Al Ahli Baptist Hospital alone. The health sector in Gaza is on the verge of collapse. 326 medical staff members have been killed, including doctors, nurses, and first aid providers, with over 100 more kidnapped from hospitals while on duty. More than 355,000 housing units have sustained severe or partial damage, with more than 67,000 destroyed. This has displaced more than 1.9 million people from their homes, with more than 1 million seeking refuge in the UNRWA-run schools. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, Israeli violations and assaults have killed 325 Palestinians, including 70 children, and the detention of over 5,600 individuals. On the Israeli side, 173 soldiers have lost their lives, and over 1,003 have been injured. Civilian casualties have also been reported, with 1,200 people killed and almost 240 taken as prisoners by Hamas. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.